kidnapping and killing Jassy Correia in 2019.
From a happy birthday party celebration to being lifeless inside a suitcase, this is a pathetic story of kidnapping, assault, and murder. On the other hand, a very young lady never knew her life would be cut short at such an early age, but the killer's senseless and violent actions gave him a lasting punishment, like forever. Who is Jassy Correia? What was her crime? And who is the killer? And what were his reasons behind this evil motive? Keep watching till the end as we unveil some mystery behind the case of Jassy Correia and Coleman. This is Unsolved Files, a place where true crime stories are being brought to your doorstep. What are you waiting for? Just hit the subscribe button for more intriguing and suspense-filled crime stories. Now let's get back into this story and uncover this mystery. Jassy Correia was born in Praia, the largest and capital city of Cabo Verde, which was located on Santiago's southern coast. When Jassy was just 3 years old, her father came to the US to stay with her. Meanwhile, their house was in Dorchester, Massachusetts, where she attended school, grew up, and eventually became a devoted mother to her daughter Gabriella in Boston. Meanwhile, Jassy had a great love for both dancing and photography, which she took as her hobby. However, she was a waitress at the Boston restaurant Del Frisco. The young woman also loved spending time with her daughter, friends, and relatives. She loved taking her young daughter to the park. But when it comes to Jassy's private life, it didn't seem to be what she wanted it to be. It was actually the opposite of what a perfect life would be. Nevertheless, Jassy was in a relationship with Miguel Castro, and their relationship wasn't the best of all. Miguel Castro, who happens to be the father of Gabriella, assaulted Jassy, and that gave her a long-lasting scar. After the incident, she tried to escape, but Miguel did not allow her to leave. Instead, he beat her severely. Subsequently, Jassy reported Miguel to the police, and the judge ultimately gave him a 4-year prison sentence. Nevertheless, Jassy would have turned 23 years old on February 26, 2019. But unfortunately, she was just 22 when the cold hands of death snatched her away. However, on Saturday, February 23, 2019, Jassy left her 2-year-old daughter with her family as she had a birthday celebration with friends that evening. That night, she decided to visit a nightclub on Warrington Street in Boston's theater district with her friends. She dressed in her brand new orange jumpsuit and enjoyed her evening. But something mysterious happened that shook the entire city. It left a stamp in the hearts of every individual. What actually happened? Sadly, she never returned home after that evening. All calls went to voicemail, and her phone was turned off. Even so, Jassy has not been seen since leaving the venue early on Sunday morning, and 2 days after the celebration, no one has heard from her. Immediately, her father, Joaquin Correia, went to the police station on Tuesday, February 26th, with a friend of Jassy, reporting that his 23-year-old daughter had vanished. Instantly, the police started their investigation. Apparently, finding out where Jassy went after leaving the nightclub was the first thing the detectives needed to do. In an effort to get someone to give vital information, her family and friends handed out information flyers to people they saw and other people in the city. Initially, the detectives questioned Jassy's friends who were with her that evening. But since they had no clue where she had disappeared, this did not really aid in the investigation. A few days after the party, her friend testified to the police about how they all spent the evening together. They danced and enjoyed champagne all night long with Jassy. After the night party ended, Jassy stepped outside with her 2 friends. Eventually, the friends bid each other farewell and then parted ways, leaving Jassy to either order a cab home or go spend a night at her friend's place, like she had said earlier. In addition to reviewing CCTV footage from cameras inside the club and on the nearby streets, the police also spoke with witnesses. The CCTV camera, however, revealed how it all started and how Jassy disappeared that night. That night, Jassy was seen outside the club, in the exact spot where her friends left her, talking with multiple people at around 2:14 a.m. on the sidewalk along Tremont Street. Also, the video purportedly showed Jassy, who appeared to be intoxicated from the party, boarding an Uber that she had not booked. Unintentionally, the young lady entered the wrong car. However, the driver was not thrilled about that, to put it gently. They got into an argument, and the driver pushed her out of the car. Meanwhile, investigators were particularly interested in what transpired next. After being compelled to exit the vehicle, she carried on an argument with the driver. She was still on the ground, highly tipsy, when an unidentified man approached her and offered to help her up. After he pulled her away a little, they struck up a conversation about something. Apparently she wanted to go, but he wouldn't let go of her hands. But as they stood on the pavement, Jassy was drawn to the man who was holding her hands. Additional analysis of the CCTV camera revealed that Jassy left the area in the company of this man. One can see for sure how this story would end, and realize that she was taken advantage of by a predator who chose to feed off of her vulnerability. Playfully, and still under the influence of alcohol, Jassy leaped on the man's back, and the strange man took her to his car, as seen in the subsequent camera footage. After about 14 minutes, they got in the car and drove off. The police had a lot of questions to address, like, who was this man, and where did he take Jassy? Luckily, they were able to swiftly ascertain the unidentified man's residence and name. It turned out that Jassy was with Louis Coleman, a 32-year-old man who was raised in a respectable home, and who also held a master's degree in physics, and was law-abiding. Furthermore, the police's database contained no evidence indicating that Louis Coleman was the owner of any vehicle. However, Coleman's mother, who resided in California, owned a red 2016 Buick, which was precisely the type of vehicle that Coleman had taken to the club that particular night Jassy went missing. Additionally, Coleman resided in Providence, Rhode Island, which was roughly 50 miles away from the nightclub. When the cops got to his apartment, Coleman wasn't there. However, the CCTV cameras both inside and outside the building confirmed the worst fears of the police and Jassy's family. Coleman returned to his apartment on Sunday at 4:15 a.m., roughly 2 hours after he put Jassy in his car. This indicates that he stopped somewhere between the approximately hour-long drive from the venue club to his apartment in Providence. Also, Coleman informed his coworkers via email the next day that he would be absent for several more days. Coleman wrote, "Hey everyone, I just wanted to let you know that I'm still sick and will be back in a few days." From what he wrote, it appears that he needed some time to cover up the evidence of the crime, which he attempted to accomplish over the course of the following 2 days. Now the question is, what happened to Jassy after she left with Coleman that night? For moral reasons, however, the police never made the initial tape public, even though it captured Coleman and Jassy going to Coleman's residence. Coleman carried a body with long hair and orange jeans as he made his way from the red automobile to the front of the building. According to the lobby footage, Coleman entered the building at approximately 4:27 a.m. with a woman in his arms. He then entered the elevator and rode to the 6th building. At that moment, Jassy was either dead or unconscious, because she was not moving. On Tuesday, February 26th, Coleman was photographed in Walmart, exactly the same day that Jassy's father reported her missing to the authorities. The items on his shopping list were quite revealing and scary. According to the receipts the police were able to get, Coleman purchased 3 Tyvek suits, duct tape, 2 candles, electrical tape, a mask, surgical gloves, 2 pairs of safety goggles, a respirator, and the chlorine-release bleach bath. Hold on. What was he trying to do with all these items? Is he trying to perform surgery on someone? The following day, February 27th, Coleman returned to Walmart again. In the 9:22 p.m. video, he was seen pushing a cart that once again had many recognizable objects in it. This time, he bought a canister and a huge suitcase. Coleman was captured on camera entering the apartment complex on February 27th, 2019, at around 9:58 p.m., carrying what seemed to be huge luggage. On February 28th, 2019, according to the surveillance footage, he wheeled the bag out of his apartment towards the elevator, out of the building, and into the parking lot to get to his car. Meanwhile, Coleman seemed to be having trouble getting the bag into his car's trunk. He was accused of leaving the facility multiple times between 2:44 and 4:02 in the morning with cardboard boxes, garbage bags, a bottle of bleaching agent, a computer tower, a black laptop case, and a small duffel bag. After obtaining a search warrant later that day, on February 28, 2019, the police discovered 2 packets of hooded coveralls and 2 respirator masks after obtaining a search warrant for Coleman's residence. They also looked at a sofa that had 4 enormous cushions on it and discovered that one of the sofa covers was missing. They discovered white trash bags, a bag containing plastic sheets, men's bleach-stained jeans, a belt, a white nylon hooded coverall, an empty baking soda box, clear safety goggles, duct tape packaging, rubbing alcohol, Walmart bags, used plastic gloves, an empty car air freshener package, 3 used purifying charcoal packages, and a sponge in a dumpster outside the apartment complex. Apparently, at a checkpoint, the police pulled over Coleman's car on the afternoon of February 28, 2019. They questioned him about whether he had any companions and gave him the order to come out of his car. They searched his vehicle, and the officers found Jassy's body wrapped in a sofa cushion cover inside a black trash bag, inside a huge suitcase that also fit the same one Coleman brought into his apartment on February 27, 2019. Certainly, experts who inspected the vehicle discovered 2 passenger-side windscreen cracks, which led the authorities to surmise that the suspect had attacked Jassy in his vehicle. Eventually, Coleman was taken into custody and taken to a court belonging to the Delaware State Police. Allegedly, Coleman had a big bandage on the right side of his face, and when he was asked about it, he said that the girl gave him a scar. During the examination, the forensic experts determined that Jassy died from blunt force injuries and strangling. Additionally, they discovered seminal fluid on her body from which matches Coleman's DNA. In addition, specialists were unable to pinpoint Jassy's exact place of death. It might have occurred in either Coleman's flat or his car. Meanwhile, both Jassy's passing and the news that her 2-year-old daughter had just lost her mother came as a shock to her family and the entire city. When visiting Correia's family, a few Boston police officers pledged to bring Jassy's case to justice. On social media, which is like a regular thing in the current world, numerous individuals accused Correia of being alone on the street at such a late hour. But however, the district attorney for Suffolk, Rachel Rollins, spoke on that. Jassy was not in the wrong place at the right time. She was right where every woman has every right to be celebrating her birthday on a night out with friends. On Saturday morning, March 9, 2019, saddened family members and community members flocked to St. Peter's Parish in Dorchester to bid farewell to Jassy Correia. Some family members wore all white, while others donned hoodies and button-up shirts with Jassy's picture and the words, "Justice for Jassy," pinned on them. In her initial eulogy, D'Andrade, a cousin and best friend of Jassy, stated, "As a community, we mourn as a family, but we must also accept the demise of Jassy, whom we do not know, but whom God knows more. I have complete faith and trust in God that her passing was not in vain." Additionally, Marty Walsh, the mayor of Boston, made a speech in which he pledged to work towards a secure world for women. Young women have the right to commemorate their birthdays with their friends while going out at night, and they also have the right to return home to their families and children. Walsh further also stated that the pain that Jassy's family has been through is one that no family should ever have to go through. At the church, Joaquin Correia, Jassy Correia's father, expressed gratitude to the crowd of more than 200 individuals. Jassy's mother, who resided in Portugal and hadn't seen her daughter in 20 years, was also present at the funeral. As the parents made preparations to lay the 23-year-old to rest, they gave off the impression that they were overcome with sadness. Within the church, there were no empty seats. Rather, a large number of people lined the back wall. Joaquin Correia expressed gratitude to the city for its assistance, as well as to all the many departments and law enforcement agencies that gave their all to complete their noble and perilous jobs in each of the 3 states towards bringing justice to his daughter. He said, "Rest in paradise, my dear child Jassy." Meanwhile, Lewis Coleman was accused of kidnapping. Prosecutors announced in November 2019 that they would not seek the death penalty for Coleman, despite the accusation of kidnapping resulting in death could entail either the death penalty or a life sentence. During the trial, prosecutors used a variety of evidence, including a video that showed Coleman dragging Jassy Correia's body into his Providence apartment and the details of his internet searches in the days after she vanished. FBI agents have described the online searches Coleman conducted in the days following the alleged kidnapping. These searches included how to fit a person in a suitcase and how to pull out a tooth that is not lost. Despite all this evidence, Coleman's legal team claims that the prosecution's evidence is insignificant and irrelevant to the charge against Coleman. Are you kidding me, bro? How can it not be relevant? He apparently learned the evil just to practice it with a body. The majority of the government's evidence has, quite honestly, focused on whether or not he handled himself appropriately after her death, and whether or not he did anything unlawful or improper thereafter. Attorney David stated, "I would suggest that none of these things are determinants of the elements of the kidnapping allegation. What transpired the night of Jassy Correia's abduction and the days leading up to the police discovering her lifeless body were extensively detailed in a number of papers submitted by the prosecution and defense. The parties involved diverged in their accounts of what transpired, but the records provided startling insights into the sequence of events and the conditions surrounding Jassy's demise. As more evidence was being brought up from a CCTV record, the prosecution observed Coleman entering the same nightclub as Jassy and her friends and conversing with a new woman. But it wasn't Jassy. They exchanged phone numbers in addition to conversing and dancing. While at the club, they texted one another, and when it closed, the prosecution and defense presented opposing viewpoints. Jassy was not the aggressor, according to the prosecution. and Coleman killed her after deceiving her into thinking he would give her a ride to her friend's place. On the other hand, Coleman's defense team contended that Jassy might have acted violently, just like when the Uber driver shoved her out of the vehicle. Defense lawyers attempted to claim during the trial that Jassy initiated the fight with Coleman on her own and that the act was not a well-thought-out stalking, kidnapping, or deprivation of life incident. The defendant, who weighed 200 pounds at the time of his arrest, allegedly claimed that the victim, who weighed 119 pounds at the time of the autopsy, had assaulted him. Coleman's attorneys attempted to minimize their client's involvement in the crime. After all, the toxicological analysis revealed that Jassy's body contained residues of multiple illegal substances in addition to alcohol. In June 2022, Coleman was found guilty of one count of kidnapping that resulted in Jassy's death. In a fresh motion, the defense team said there was not enough evidence to support a conviction. They were unable to affect the trial's verdict, though. Louise Coleman, 36, was given a life sentence without the possibility of release in October 2022 by the court for kidnapping and killing Jassy Correia. Additionally, the court mandated that he compensate her family with roughly $60,000. However, Jassy Correia, a 22-year-old mother of a little daughter, was lively and attractive. Louise Coleman, a complete stranger, kidnapped her, raped her, and strangled her to death. This punishment will never ease the grief and anguish Louise Coleman caused Jassy Correia that night, or her beloved family, her mother, father, brother, and so many others, every day since February 24, 2019. First Assistant United States Attorney Joshua Levy said in a statement that Louise Coleman lost his ability to live freely in society due to his depravity and horrifying contempt for Miss Correia's life. Louise Coleman has never expressed regret. Louis did not even think about handing himself in after luring the 22-year-old Miss Correia into his car, sexually abusing her, and then brutally killing her. Instead, he came up with a macabre scheme to hide the attack and murder he had just carried out. Levy claimed in a statement that Louise Coleman's life sentence was a fair penalty because it is still unknown where he was carrying Jassy's body and what he intended to do before he was apprehended by the authorities. Do you think the punishment given to Coleman was well-deserved? Let us know in the comment section below. Now, what do you think about a woman who committed murder and ended her own life because of love? Go check out our previous video, The Most Terrifying End to Love Imaginable, the case of Gerardo couple.